Hello everyone and welcome back to Game 4, or rather Round 4 of the Grandchester SuperUnited Croatia Rapid Tournament. It is Maxime Vachier-Lagrave versus the World Chess Championship challenger Gukesh. And they will play also the Sicilian defense, like Maxime played against Ivan Šarić that he defeated in the game that we've shown. Now he faces Gukesh. So let's check it out. Maxime with white opens with pawn to e4. We have pawn to c5. The Sicilian defense is on the board. Knight f3, knight to c6, the old Sicilian variation, and now bishop to c4. This is a fun way to tackle the Sicilian. You don't go for the immediate d4, but just play as if you would against an Italian. So e4, knight f3, bishop c4. We have knight to f6, but now, okay, the pawn is hanging. You don't castle. Pawn to e5. But also it's different than if the position was without the bishop on c4, because now black doesn't have to move the knight. Gukesh just plays pawn to d5. There's a target on c4. So bishop to b5. Knight back to g8, and now there are a couple of games where bishop captures on c6 was played, but here we have pawn to d4, and it is now as of move 6 that we have a completely new game. We have pawn to e6 and now pawn to c3. So much like you would have in a French defense, bishop to d7 and now bishop to a4. C captures on d4, we have c captures and knight g to e7, knight to c3, and now definitely the knight belongs on f5. Gukesh played it on g6. Of course, he had a very good reason for it, I imagine, but it just seems very normal to put it on f5. You just put pressure on d4, and later on you play queen to b6 and put even more pressure on d4. But okay, who are we to question Gukesh? Knight to c3, he goes knight to g6, and Maxime says, alright, I don't like this knight on g6, pawn to h4. So you could consider playing pawn to h5 to stop the advancement of the pawn right away, but then I mean, where are you castling? That could be a weakness later on. So Gukesh decides against it. He plays pawn to h6, invites pawn to h5, and Maxime goes for it. He says, all right, show me what was the idea. Gukesh goes back, knight to g to e7, and bishop to c2. We have rook to c8, castles, and now knight to a5, preparing to put the knight on c4. So bishop to d3 and queen to b6, putting pressure on the b2 pawn, on the d4 pawn. We have rook to b1, defending the pawn. Now the bishop can be developed. Of course, you want to put the bishop on e3. And now pawn to a6. We have bishop to e3, knight to c4, attacking the bishop here, and queen to e2, inviting the capture. Queen to a5, and now knight to d2, putting pressure again on the knight on c4. And now you either capture or you defend it. We have pawn to b5 and knight to b3, attacking the queen. We have queen back all the way to d8, and now knight to c5, putting pressure on the bishop here, knight to c6, and now Maxime just went for pawn to b4. And okay, pawn to b4 is often the strongest move in the position, but here it's only the second strongest. Like, if it's not the strongest, it's often the second strongest. But knight captures on d7 is the better way to go with queen to g4. Queen to g4 is just very nice. It prevents the bishop from developing. And also, well, just a very nice square. You have firm control over f5. You're preparing f4, f5 to bust open the position. So very unclear as to what black should do here. But okay, Maxime went for pawn to b4. And now bishop captures on c5. B captures and queen to h4. Okay, the queen is in the game. The threat is knight captures on d4, and here g3. Attacking the queen, queen to h3, and now pawn to a4, going after the b5 pawn, where b4 again should be played. It is by far the best move, but Gukesh plays knight to e7, and now Maxime just captures. A captures on b5, a captures, we have knight captures on b5, bishop captures, and rook captures. Gukesh is now down a pawn, but he of course will recapture on h5 at some point. We have castles, and now rook to c1. Putting pressure on the knight here, so knight captures on e3, queen captures on e3, and now queen captures on h5. You could, of course, capture with the f-pawn, but that would allow queen captures on g3. So now queen captures on h5, and it is equal material. We have king to g2 and pawn to f5, where Again, Maxime has to decide, does he go for e captures on f6 en passant? Because with en passant, it's you either do it now or you never do it. It's it's a one move opportunity, and you should consider something like rook h1, go after the queen, then you go rook to b7, you put pressure on the 7th rank. But Maxime does go for the en passant. This weakens the e6 pawn, but Gukesh captures with the rook captures on f6, defends on e6, and now rook to h1. Attacks the queen to f7, now puts pressure on the f2 pawn, and rook to b7 is the move you'd expect, but Maxime goes back, rook to b2. And probably as Maxime is playing really fast, Gukesh is very low on time. Gukesh has 36 seconds on the clock, Maxime 6 minutes. Of course, he wants to play fast and he wants to prevent Gukesh from thinking too much, and especially thinking on Maxime's time. So rook to f8, Gukesh triples up on the f file, and now pawn to f4. We have knight to c6 and rook to b6, putting pressure on the knight back to e7, and rook to e1, now putting triple pressure on that e6 pawn. Rook to a8, preparing rook to a2 check, and here, what do you play? Rook to e2, stopping rook to e2 check. The real move to play is queen e5. Queen e5 is just outright winning, as you leave black without a move. Now, if you deliver a check, you can even trade rook e2, and after rook captures, queen captures, there's no good move that you can play here. The h7 is covered, rook to c8 check is coming. Also, I mean, e6 is still fairly weak, but the real threat is rook to b8 check. But in the game after rook a8, rook to e2 was played, and now Gukesh just goes queen to h5. We have queen to e5 now. On the other hand, you could also consider rook captures on e6. But if you do this now, then comes rook to a1, and it's a draw. At least a draw for Gukesh if Maxime plays perfect chess. Now he cannot allow queen to h1, he has to play rook to e1, but then Gukesh repeats rook e2 check, rook a2 check, rook e2, and rook to a1. It will be probably a draw by threefold repetition. So after queen h5, queen to e5 was played, and now knight to f5. We have bishop captures on f5, rook captures on f5, and queen captures on e6 with check. King to h7, and now rook back to b1. So Maxime is now up a pawn, and he wants to play rook to c1 to start advancing his pawn. But probably other moves like rook b to b2 were better. But okay, rook to b1, a little time on the clock for him as well now. Rook to a3 by Gukesh, and now comes rook to h1, going after the queen, even though there's a move that really, should have been played by Maxime here, but it wasn't. Feel free to pause the video and try to figure out what Maxime missed here while I give you a couple of seconds. I'm not even going to congratulate you for this one. Of course, it's a queen to f3 check. This is what Gukesh played, and it was in this position on move 43 that Maxime Vachier-Lagrave resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Queen captures on g3 will either be mate in 1 if he goes somewhere weird like king to h3, and of course if he goes to g1, then it's a matter of a nice check, and now whatever you play, if you go here, then rook captures on f4. If you don't go there, well, other moves don't really help you. You could maybe after this happens go to rook g2 instead of going to f1, but then just rook to a1, and this will now be checkmate. Once white gives up his queen, captures checkmate, and that's pretty much it. So it was a very, very nicely played game by Maxime. He also dominated like he did against Ivan Šarić and against his Sicilian, but what I found interesting is that in the interview after the game, Gukesh said that probably he was a bit worse somewhere during the game, but then he found a nice trick and he was able to trick Maxime. So you can see that, in a faster time format, even though it's 25 minutes plus increment, players still don't have a clear idea of how much better or worse someone is. It's a fight. And until it's over, it's still a fight. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Very nicely played by Gukesh. We're gonna cover at least one more game from today's rounds, and then we are going to discuss the standings and what could happen in the final day. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Michael Hoff, Lawrence Brazier, Edward Vazo, Kevin O'Grady, and James Eugene Cashman for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to cover this tournament until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.